Karyn Dolan is the host of Through the Keyhole, a weekly internet radio program devoted to ufology and the paranormal. She is interested in the connections between various fringe topics such as cryptozoology, ufology, occultism, and hidden history. Karyn also provides copy editing and transcription services for various researchers and writers in the UFO paranormal field. Please help us welcome Mrs. Karyn Dolan.
Hi, everybody. Gosh, thanks so much for coming out. This is the first time I've ever spoken at this conference, and I am just having a fantastic time. And thanks so much, Ryan, for inviting me to come and speak here. This is a really great group of people, and I'm really excited to be involved in this. I'm going to talk about UFOs, aliens, and desensitization of children through the media. Sounds like a big topic. This is actually something that just sort of struck me while I was watching TV with my kids. So this is sort of a down-home kind of thing. Everyone here, I believe, everyone in this room, is pretty much okay with the concept of the existence of UFOs. We're all kind of down with the idea that they exist, they're here, they're not from here, but they're here. So we can kind of jump past that part, right? There's evidence that they've been here for a really long time, thousands of years. And after all this time, even though some groups and some individuals seem to believe that they know everything there is to know about all the aliens, they know why they're here. And we've gone through the whole range. We've gone from people saying, they're here to take us over and we need to have weapons and we need to be ready to fight them off, to they are our space brothers and they're here to help us. And they're here to clean up our environment and they're going to teach us how to be at one with the universe and we're going to take our place in the Galactic Federation. Well, you know what? I don't know that. And I've looked at all the evidence, not all the evidence, that would be huge. I've looked at what I can get hold of and I've thought about it and I've looked at some more evidence and I've talked to people. And I don't think there's enough out there. There's not enough that we know for us to be able to say they're good, they're bad, even that they're all here for the same thing. I don't know that. In looking at what they've been doing, though, in looking at what people are reporting, seeing them doing, reporting these alien beings are doing to humans, their activities seem to be changing a little bit in that they seem to be trying harder now to get us to stop fighting them. When they come here and they want to do things to us, they used to just grab people out of their cars, grab people out of their beds. Okay, they're still doing that. But abductees these days are beginning to talk more about aliens wanting them to go along with what they're doing. They're trying to get buy-in from the humans. And I'm really having a hard time with this. I don't like it. I would love to know what it is they're trying to do. I don't think we still have enough clues about what exactly they're working toward, but it is kind of creepy that they're trying to get us to work with them, or at least to stop fighting. Here's some of the evidence that they've been here that seems to indicate that they've been here for a very, very long time. 15,000 BCE in France. What the heck are these things, if not UFOs? Okay, we don't have incredibly detailed, well-written, eloquent essays describing them. There probably was no written language then, so they wrote in what they had. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right? That looks like a classic. There's your hat-shaped UFO. There's your triangle, which appears to be in motion. There's a being standing there watching them. 10,000 BCE in Italy. Do these not look like some sort of astronauts? They're wearing some kind of helmets. Or at the very least, even if they're not helmets, even if we want to interpret these as halos, with the light rays coming off, there's still something about these beings that made the artist think, this is some sort of godlike being with powers that I don't have. Perhaps mental powers, perhaps telepathy, perhaps they were able to communicate through their minds, perhaps they were able to read the minds of the humans who created these paintings. This is my favorite. Australia, 3000 BCE. Now we're seeing the classic big black eyes. Okay. Whitley Strieber may have publicized this. You asked any abductee, and they will talk about those eyes. They talk about being held by these eyes, being completely hypnotized, immobilized, falling into these eyes. And I love this painting because that really shows the power that people feel, that modern abductees feel when they describe the eyes of the aliens. And I can feel it when I look at these. There's another one in Utah. Once again, you can see the big eyes. I love that one that's sort of a negative. It's a big dark figure with the glowing eyes. Okay, keep this in mind. We're doing this for a reason. Terry Hansen mentioned in his presentation yesterday, he was talking about the media and how they wanted to handle this whole UFO problem. And the Robertson panel, which was put together by the CIA in 1953, issued a report which explained what they felt we should be doing, our government ought to be doing, in order to contain the public opinion about UFOs. They didn't want anybody panicking. They didn't want anybody thinking, oh my God, here's this War of the Worlds thing going on, we're all going to die. So, they expressly say in the report, we need an educational program with two major aims, training and debunking. The debunking aim would result in reduction in public interest in flying saucers, which today evokes a strong psychological reaction. Yeah, still does. Does in me. This education could be accomplished by mass media, such as television, motion pictures, and popular articles. Goes on to say there's much less stimulation if the secret is known. So they're saying right here, we're not going to tell the public the truth about what we know about UFOs and aliens. We're going to do debunking. We're going to come up with all kinds of fake stories that are going to tell everybody what we want them to know about UFOs, and it will have nothing to do with reality. Otherwise, they wouldn't call it debunking, okay? So what do we get? The Flintstones, which was aimed at adults, in 1965 introduced a character who is an alien. And I don't know how many people in here remember seeing Gazoo when he first came out. I didn't see him when he first came out, but I do remember watching Gazoo when I was a kid. And it was awful. You know, he was just not a help to the show at all. But the point is that he was the first image to come out, and he was this benevolent space brother type. Okay, they tried to make him really funny, but ultimately he was sent here by someone else, by this race on another planet, to do nice things and to help out Fred and Barney. And of course it always went wrong and it was always really funny, but here's the very first image is, yes, aliens are out there, yes, they're here, they're nice. They're not anything to worry about, it's okay. They'll do little magic things for you, it's okay. You may have noticed that I'm kind of cherry picking here. I didn't make any attempt to make this an exhaustive coverage of everything that was out there, okay? But I chose specific examples that showed a trend, that illustrate points that I wanted to make. Mork and Mindy started in 1978. This was actually a spin-off from Happy Days, which is a show that's about as far away from UFOs and aliens as I can imagine getting. But it was classic Americana. Everybody could look at Happy Days and think, okay, these are like normal people. This is a normal household, normal family. This is kind of like my family probably was in the 50s. You know, you can identify with them. So here comes this alien who tried to abduct Richie Cunningham. And apparently, from what I read on Wikipedia, he was repelled by the force of the Fonz's thumbs. I really wish I'd seen that one. That must have been fun. So Mork decided that, you know, abducting humans really isn't a very nice thing to do. But we do need to know about these Earthlings. So you know what I want to do? He reported back to his superiors. I want to stay here on this planet, and I want to observe people. And I'll give you periodic reports. I'll stay here and I'll watch and I'll live like one of them and I'll tell you what I'm learning. And I can do that because I look like a human. He traveled through time and through space from his 1950s sojourn in Milwaukee on Happy Days, and he went up to the late 70s in Boulder, Colorado, and that's where he lived for the rest of the series. So that's kind of cool. We got time travel, space travel, alien abduction. We got human-looking aliens living among us and reporting back. Anybody creeped out yet? And the really funny thing is this wasn't creepy when we saw it, when we were watching Mork and Mindy. It was just funny, you know? It was just there. 1986, we had Alf. He was cute, he was furry, and he was cuddly, and everybody liked him. He was also a really sympathetic character because his planet was destroyed. And he came here, and he crashed on this planet, so right away we want to help him. You know, right from the start. And he came here only because his planet was dying and he needed to find a new place to live. So there's another reason. We want to help him. He's nice. He's a nice guy. The family that he lived with protected him from the military, the United States military, from a division that they called the Alien Task Force, or ATF. Okay, I hear chuckles, so I'm not the only one who got that then, okay? Most of this series was spent with the family trying to protect him from the ATF. They're trying to hide this alien because the ATF wants to come and take him away. When they finally decided to end the series, in the final episode, the military did come and get him, and they did take him away to a facility that was described very much like Area 51. This is something that kids were watching. You know, originally, Flintstones was something that was aimed at adults. But of course, kids were watching, and I watched it when I was a kid. Mork and Mindy was aimed primarily at families. There was some humor in that was above kids' heads, but you know, there was a lot that kids would really enjoy about that. So we got adults, now we're trying to encompass kids, we're in families. Alf was really primarily for younger audience. This was really aimed at kids. I know there were adults who watched it and enjoyed it. I watch kids shows all the time and I love it, hence. Yes. But now we're really starting to see these programs being aimed at younger and younger viewers. So we're trying to reach people whose opinions and whose worldview is not yet formed. Almost as if someone realized, you know, you can't just put the message out because it's not really getting there. These people already know what they think about the world, and they already know what they think about aliens. We got to get to people who haven't formed those opinions yet. We got to keep working younger and younger and younger. Okay, so we'll go younger. And when these guys came out, I remember hearing a lot of buzz in the media about these guys. College kids are saying, what the heck is that? Those things are freaky. Yeah, they are. And for people who have read the UFO abduction literature, for anybody who's read Communion, okay, yeah, they're bright colored and they're cute and they're fat and they're bouncy, so these aren't grays, right? Look at their eyes, okay? Great big eyes. They have mouths, but they never move. Has anybody in here watched Teletubbies? Okay. Okay, a few people have. This thing that looks like a vacuum cleaner that they're all clustered around, this is called the Nunu. This is a machine, okay? They don't pretend that it's alive. However, those two lights on the top, those are like eyes, and they talk to it and they ask it. When they drop something, they drop their food or they make a mess on the floor, they say, uh-oh, and the Nunu comes and cleans it up. So it's kind of like a vacuum cleaner, but it's kind of like an intelligent vacuum cleaner. Shades of Ray Kurzweil. If you look at the background, look where they live. See this metal archwork? Everything's curved, everything's smooth, everything's pretty, everything's metal. They're underground. Every once in a while, they show this from the outside. It's this beautiful, green, grassy field with hills. Looks like you're somewhere in pastoral England. It's really lovely. Flowers, blue sky. And there's this hill like this. A little door in the front. And all I can think of is the fairies that live underground in the fairy mounds. Remember Jacques Vallée in Passport to Magonia? And he said, gee, you know, the fairies sound a lot like the way we describe the grays. And maybe they were the same thing. Maybe they were. Teletubbies also have these things coming out the top of their heads. And you can kind of see in this picture, you can see on the yellow one, Lala. See, I know their names because I have kids. You see the gray thing on her belly? Well, they all have this square gray thing, which is a TV screen. And they get signals through these antennae on the top of their heads. Sometimes when they're outside playing, you'll see this thing that looks like a pinwheel, and it's really tall. It'll start spinning. And then this metallic voice will come out of it, and it'll tell them to do things. Now, I was always waiting for "You must kill mommy and daddy," but that never came out. But it would say, okay, time to go play games, or time to go eat, or time to go take a nap. Though it wouldn't use those words. It would say, time for Tubby, bye-bye. I get really tired of that. But they would get these signals, and they'd all get excited, and they'd all run together, and they'd all look at each other's little receivers, and one of them would get the message. And that one was like, the winner, I win, and they'd all crowd around to watch the message, and then they'd do what it said. This is creepy. So they have these huge round heads, like grays. They have these great big dark eyes, like grays. They have something that looks like spacesuits. They seem to be wearing clothing. We think they're spacesuits. They have receivers in here, and they have antenna up here. They live in this hidden underground facility. Any of this sounding familiar yet? There's this intelligent machine that appears to serve them. Then there's another intelligent machine, of course, that orders them around and tells them what to do all the time. The sun in the sky has a face on it. That's like a baby face. So there's another big round head with kind of big eyes. Only, this is a human baby face. It's just bizarre that it's up in the sun. After Teletubbies, we got the next generation. This is something called Bouba. Now, a lot of people have heard of the Teletubbies. Has anybody in here heard of Bouba before now? Got one back there. Okay. So a few people have. When this first came out, I looked at the difference between Bouba and Teletubbies, which is essentially that now they have no mouth at all. They still have the great big black eyes. Their eyes are bigger and blacker than they used to be, and they have the domed heads. But now they're even more like the grays, which have tiny, tiny mouths so small that they might as well not have them at all. These guys have, we don't know if this is clothing or if this is their necks or what, but something comes right up over their mouth. So all you can see is these big black eyes. They don't speak. They do make some sort of a clicking noise, which is familiar to those of us who have watched old movies on aliens. They're less human than the Teletubbies in appearance, so we're kind of moving away from things that are like us and toward things that are like what? What are we showing our kids? Okay, they're fat and they're bright colors, but aside from that, there's not that much to distinguish them from the grays, really. They have no longer any mouth at all. When we see them, they're inside a craft. I'm going to show you a video clip of this, so you'll see it in a minute. When we first see them, they're inside their craft, which is a silver orb, which comes up from the horizon, which is behind water, and it moves very erratically across the sky. And then we see inside, and we see them sleeping in these pods. And it looks like nothing more than a spaceship. When their eyes open, it's very sudden. And suddenly there are these enormous, glittering black eyes looking at you, and you can hear them snap open. That was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life the first time I watched this. And I was watching it with my kids who were little at that time. Keep an eye on this and listen for the music. There we go. This is at the opening of every episode of Bouba. Everybody hear that? Anybody see Close Encounters? Do you think they meant to put that in there? Okay, when you're watching this on TV, this is all one video. We split it into two to make it easier on the video presentation. Yikes. I have to tell you guys, the first time I saw this, my kids are watching TV. They were little, this was several years ago. And I was like doing laundry or something, I don't know. I was working around the house, just keeping kind of one eye on what they were watching. But it was PBS. I don't have to worry about what the kids are watching on PBS, right? It's like Sesame Street. This is educational. This is good for them. So I'm walking across the room, probably had a basket of laundry in my hands, and I glanced up and saw this, just as their eyes popped open. Next thing I know, I was backed up against the back wall of the living room. I said, you know what, turn that off. Let's go outside. Teletubbies and Bouba both they were put out by BBC. I did a little digging on this, and they were made by a woman named Ann Wood. I'm going to have a little talk with Ryan Wood about that. As far as I know, no connection. She said, we just wanted bright colors, to engage the children. Kids like dancing, kids like moving around. Bouba involves a lot of dancing, a lot of activity. It's good for the kids because it engages them, and it's designed to get them up off the couch and doing stuff. They're supposed to be doing the things that they see Bouba doing. I looked up an interview with Ann Wood about Bouba. This is from 2003. In answer to the question, who or what are the Boubas? Now, she doesn't come out and say, oh, well, they're aliens. Never says that. What she does say is that the Boubas are 5 colorful atoms of energy. They are powered by the laughter and joy of children they encounter all over the world. Well, that sounds really sweet. They're powered by laughter. Isn't that nice? Has anybody heard the theories of abduction researchers that perhaps aliens, maybe grays, maybe others, feed off the energy of the people they abduct? Suddenly saying they're powered by laughter and joy of children doesn't sound quite so nice anymore, does it? I mean, at least they're not powered by the fear of children. That would be bad. The next question is, where do Boubas live? They live in a glowing white ball of light, which is called the Boubal. I love that. That's so cute. It travels from country to country when called by children. Has anybody else heard the theories that perhaps abductees somehow, even unwittingly, send out a signal of some kind that attracts the attention of aliens who then come and abduct them and check them out? It's a theory. I have no idea whether it's true, but I've been hearing it a lot just lately. And when I saw this, I thought, oh my God, that's the same thing. Each Bouba has a recharging pod within the Boubal. The recharging energy is created by the laughter of children when they play with the Boubal and the Boubas. So it's not just happy children, they have to be happy playing with the Boubas in order for the Boubas to be able to absorb their energy. Presumably, the Boubas would die if they didn't get energy from the kids because they are powered by the laughter of children, so this is like Tinkerbell, right? In 1994, Leah Haley published a book called Cito's New Friends. This was a children's book. And this was designed to introduce children to the concept of aliens, to introduce them to grays. And it presents a gray, Cito, who comes and meets his 2 human friends playing in the park with a ball. And you can see Cito's ship up in the background there, this little silvery orb that looks just like the Boubal to me. The book goes on to show Cito inviting his friends to come away with him for a ride. And they go. And they go have a nice little ride in their spaceship, and they all have a really wonderful time, and then he brings them back, and everything's lovely. So what kids are going to be learning, now admittedly, this is not mainstream publication. This is a pretty specialty kind of book. It's not like what's going on TV, except doesn't this image look just like the beginning of Bouba? I mean, there's the silvery ball coming in, there are the kids playing in the park. It almost looks like it was lifted from the Bouba image. Only now you can actually see the gray alien in it. So what kids are learning is, if you're playing in the park, or presumably if you're asleep in your bed, and somebody who looks like this comes and invites you out for a ride, it's fine. You can go ahead. Okay, there may not be a lot of parents of very young children who watch Teletubbies in this room right now, but I bet there are a lot of parents, and there are a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters. Is anybody here okay with the idea of kids being told if somebody you've never seen before but who kind of looks like this comes and tells you to come away for a ride, it's okay to go? Actually, I don't care what they look like. If you don't know them, it's not okay to go. If I don't know them, it's not okay to go. But the image these kids are getting from Bouba and Teletubbies, and from this, and from a lot of other media, you wouldn't believe how much stuff is out there. After I gave this same presentation in Roswell this summer, I thought, well, I got a couple of little TV shows to talk about. There's not very much out there, but here are a couple. You would not believe how many people, and several of you are here in this room, and thank you very much, but people have sent me books, you have sent me videos, you've sent me information about TV shows, the networks they air on, what time they air. There's a Saturday morning cartoon that I'm still trying to locate. A couple people have told me about this. And I have not gotten the title of it yet, but somebody was watching cartoons with his grandchildren one Saturday morning. They turned on the TV in the middle of a cartoon, and there's this praying mantis, this big, standing over two little kids who are very happily working away at a computer, learning something. They didn't grasp what these kids were supposed to be learning. Everybody's very happy about it. And I just about flipped. This guy said, you should have seen it. I was trying so hard to find out what it was called or where they were headed with this, but he only caught a few minutes of the cartoon. But if stuff this blatant is out there, what on earth are our kids going to grow up thinking? And so many parents, we don't know what the kids are seeing on TV. How many of us sit down and watch Saturday morning cartoons with our kids? How many adults really want to sit down and watch Saturday morning cartoons? And to be honest, I don't think my kids want me doing it with them anyway. It kind of sucks the fun out of it when mom's there. But see, they're going to see these images and think there's nothing wrong with a 6-foot-tall praying mantis teaching kids stuff on a computer. Anybody in this room is hearing this image and saying, oh my God, I know what that is. And I don't necessarily want people teaching that to my kids. There's Cito. He can't talk with his mouth, he talks with his eyes. Doesn't he look like Bouba? This was my personal favorite cartoon. Invader Zim came out in 2001. He is like a cult favorite. College kids are really into this. This was hip. This was not for little kids. But. So here we have an image again of a scary alien. That is his real form, although he often wears a disguise to cover up his little antenna. He wears a little black wig. And he has contact lenses, so he looks like he has real eyes, even though they're all like this big. He really, really, really wants to conquer Earth, but he's this tall, and he's really bad at it. In fact, a schoolgirl who lives nearby says exactly that. Her brother is like the only person in town who's onto the fact that Zim is an alien. He says to the kids at school, he has green skin. Does nobody notice the green skin? And they're like, Zim, it's a skin condition, okay? Be nice. So he goes home to his sister, and he says, why does nobody see this? He's trying to take over the world. We have to stop him. We have to do something. And she never looks up from her Game Boy, which they call Game Slave. I love that. And she's sitting here doing it. She says, yeah, but he's so bad at it. An interesting thing about this, though, is that we were watching this in 2001, and the week of 9/11, that was a Tuesday, And we sat down on Friday night, we're going to watch cartoons, trying to get back to life as usual. Zim wasn't on that night. He did come back eventually, and as far as I know, he wasn't changed or anything. But he didn't actually last very long after that. He was pulled from the network. I found it really interesting that the very week that we did have what seemed to be some sort of invasion from outside, Invader Zim got yanked. And I'm thinking, it's a cartoon, guys. Come on. Somebody is thinking we take these things pretty seriously, or that this has a pretty serious effect on us. At the very least, someone is trying to control, what we're seeing and what kind of images are coming in, which makes me think they're trying to get some control in there in the first place, just from what they're putting out. Back to the Robertson panel, there was another interesting point about that. It said it was felt strongly that psychologists familiar with mass psychology should advise on the nature and extent of the program. So now we're thinking, how do we reach large groups of people? How do we affect very large groups of people all at once? As a potentially valuable channel of communication, reaching a mass audience of certain levels, the panel suggested Walt Disney animated cartoons. It'd be a great way to reach the masses. We can put out any message we want. Everybody watches Walt Disney cartoons. So what do we get but Lilo and Stitch? Look at Lilo is the little girl. Look at Stitch's eyes. They just look like Ceto's eyes, don't they? Stitch kind of talks. He talks kind of the way a parrot talks. I mean, he can express his own thoughts, but he's not very clear, and he'll use like a word or a phrase at a time. He doesn't do complete sentences or anything. They've completely gotten away from that whole no mouth thing, I see. That's good. Of course, they filled it with teeth, which are kind of scary. He's sort of a dangerous little alien, but he's cute, So now we're getting this image of an alien who can be really, really dangerous, but not to you. He'll be nice to you. It's okay. Even if he looks really dangerous, don't worry about it, because he'll be nice to you. He's wearing a grass skirt. He's dancing the hula on the beach. He must be okay, right? So we have all these faces. These are all images that our kids are getting, except the one on the bottom, of course. Probably a lot of us try to not put that out where the kids can see it. But they're all awfully similar. They all have almost the same eyes. Even the Teletubbies have the round eyes. They don't have the almonds, but still they're big and they're dark and they just look like they're wearing those little space suits. Then we get into the toys. Christmas is coming, so we're getting 1 million commercials for toys. Has anybody seen these Bratz toys? Okay, the eyes are the same, and they have the great big heads on those skinny little bodies. The difference is the lips now. They're starting to look a little more human. These have hair and lips. Okay, so that's like the difference. There's an interesting photo that I want to show you in conjunction with the Bratz toys, which I got through Paola Harris, and I believe it originally was taken by a gentleman in Italy. I don't have the name of the original photographer, but it's supposed to be of an alien-human hybrid. Take a look at that face, and then look at the Bratz toys. See, even in toys, they're getting these weird, distorted, non-human images. Okay, so the images are everywhere. Why would they be there? Okay, why do this at all? They obviously want to have some effect. And they, who's they? Who's doing this? I have to tell you that I have not answered all of my own questions on this yet. I'm putting information out. Hopefully some more people will pick up on this, and maybe somebody in this room will take the ball and run with it, and we'll find out more than I was able to. I'm going to keep digging. I've got people sending me tons of stuff that I haven't had a chance to get through yet. But the only reason anyone would do this is that they want to make some sort of a change. They want to change our behavior, or they want to change our perceptions, or they want to change our behavior by changing our perceptions. Okay, so they want us to trust people or beings who look like these images that they're showing us. We know that there are beings out there who have been seen and reported to look like these images, and they haven't behaved in very nice ways. So why would all these images be coming out showing these beings who look just like this being really nice and playing with little kids, and they're not hurting anybody? And yeah, they take kids away, but they bring them back. We don't get to see what happens when they go away. It bothers me that they're moving toward trying to affect younger and younger and younger children. Ignatius Loyola said, "Give me a child until he's 7, and anyone who likes can have him afterward." It's really hard to change your early perceptions. And somebody understood that. Because in the early days, when they tried to talk to adults, somebody realized that adults already have their worldview pretty well set. I mean, we can learn new things, but it's really hard for us to change the way we see the world and the way we think about things, about anything. It's hard to change an adult's mind. Children's minds are still forming, and the younger you get them, if you can implant your ideas before anyone else gets in, you're set. Now it's going to be hard for adults to teach their kids not to go off with the grays. So what can we do about this? There's the old write to your congressman, complain about the TV shows, turn them off. We don't watch TV anymore. My kids are too old for Teletubbies anyway. It's not really an issue. There are lots of other shows out there. There are a million other shows, and there are more coming out all the time. I'm not an advocate of saying nobody should be making these shows and nobody should be putting them out. What I do think is that parents ought to be paying attention to what their kids are doing, what their kids are watching. I've had a couple people ask me, okay, so what can parents do to protect their kids from this? Sit down once in a while and watch TV with your kids. You know, take a look at what they're seeing. I would have had no idea that there were these alien images out there. And you know, it's funny, most people that I talk to at conferences, when I first noticed this, I'd started chatting with conference attendees and other speakers, and I'd say, geez, what do you guys think of Bouba? And most people hadn't ever heard of it. And then I'd go to work, and I'd be around people who don't know anything about abductees and about aliens, and they'd never read any of the books that I've been reading. And they all knew about Bouba, but they didn't know what they looked like. And they didn't see why there was a bad thing with having little creatures that look like aliens, you know, coming and taking kids away into their little silvery orbs. So since those of us in this room do know why it's not okay for kids to go away with little short beings with big eyes into their silvery orbs, the best thing we can do, really, is to spend time with our kids, watch what they're watching sometimes. Ask them what they think about it. Tell them what we think about it. Respect our kids. We shouldn't sit down and say, don't watch this. Think this about it, don't think that about it. Because then you won't know what they're thinking. The important thing is to find out, you know, are these messages getting through to our kids? And you got to teach them to be critical themselves, to recognize these images. And when you do see them, think, you know, what does that look like? And do you think it's okay for those kids to go off? You know, those kids are out playing in their park. Their parents think they're playing in the park. And what if they go off with Cito and they go off for a ride in his little orb? What are their parents going to think when it's dinner time and they're not back yet? Is that okay? We do need to make our own decisions. I don't advocate censorship. I advocate thinking, which I think everybody in this room probably does. I think that's why we're all here, getting information and thinking for ourselves. I would like to have some idea of why somebody might be putting this out. I'm hesitant to reach beyond what I can say, which is somebody wants to change our perception of these beings. Somebody is putting these images out for a reason, and they're making us see them in a certain way for a reason. And I'm still working on what that reason might be, and if anybody else in here wants to join in and do some research too, hey, the more the merrier, right? It's a fairly new field. So that's it. Everybody just, hey, go watch TV with your kids. Have fun. Think about what you're seeing. Thanks, Ryan. Does anybody have any questions, any comments? Anybody seen any other shows that? Question?
Have you researched any of the advertising companies behind some of these images to see if they're tied together or if they're the provenance of where these may have come from?
Most of the shows, I was concentrating heavily on Teletubbies and Bouba, which were aired on PBS. So there wasn't a lot of advertising involved with those. And actually, I thought that was that was an interesting aspect of it, was that this was supposed to be, public TV and supposed to be good for kids and educational and all this, and this is where I was seeing the images come up first. I don't know about the advertising. However, right after this presentation, Peter Robbins is going to be coming on talking about exactly that. So I would stay right where you are and listen to Peter. Any other questions? Yes?
Interesting talk, thanks.
Thank you.
It made me think of something else I've been noticing. I don't know if this is related, but it's along the line of conditioning or desensitization or something. And that is more and more I'm finding sound effects being used. There's a whoosh sound, and there's a lot of excess background music, this thumping, throbbing, adrenaline pumping music, this jazzy drum stuff, and it just is driving me nuts. I just can't stand it. I even heard some of it at this conference. I almost went over and told the guys to stop playing it. I just have to wonder what this is doing to people too.
Well, there's a whole science in the effect of sound on humans, psychologically and physiologically, and I can bet that Madison Avenue and not only the people who work on advertising, but on any TV programs, know exactly what they're doing when they put music into the background of things. It's not something I've studied per se, so I can't really go into great detail on it, but yeah, I'm sure that they are specifically using those effects when they put it in there. There are certain effects that make people more receptive to the visual images that are coming in, and I'd be willing to bet that's what they're there for. Thanks very much for everybody. Thanks so much for listening.